Hi everyone. This is a little different because this is the next day. Yes, I'm still wearing the same sweater. Whatever. I'm at home. But I just want to come on to say that this tutorial will be split up into segments. So I'm going to focus on blocking out the vest first for the first tutorial, and then the next one blocking out the pants, and then doing the touch-ups and the details on the vest and the scarf later. And eventually you guys will see that guy over there doing its magic, and I hope that it's informative and useful and you guys are helped. No, or just enjoy your time watching me as I navigate through this Barbie outfit. I actually had a lot of fun and there were some challenges for sure, but it was a super fun project to work on. So I hope you guys enjoy the series. Hi everyone, this is going to be part two of the Barbie series, and I believe for now I'm going to probably um, try something else for the next video, but this one I do want to do the cowgirl outfit that um, was shown in those paparazzi photos, the leaked paparazzi photos. I thought it was such a cute outfit, and I think that's what kind of catapulted this whole like Barbie press mania. Whether it was intentional or not, I still think it's a cute outfit. So what I'm trying to pull up right now are my references because I was able to build a little puree as seen here. I just wanted to see different angles of her and to just get a lot of good shots of the detail, just so that I understand what's kind of going on these trims. And today we have Kiwi in the back. I'm not sure if he'll be here all the time, just because he's a very busy guy, but today, hopefully he'll be over there for the most part. Um, really, that's inappropriate. That's what you want to do right now. I'm sorry, guys. This is a children's channel. Let me just cover him with my ears. I mean, my hair. Alright, so I'm gonna have my Puref on the other screen. Let me just pull out. I just didn't want to start the video with my naked avatar. I'm sorry, that's my fault. But today I do want to bring in an image and kind of show you guys how to use patterns that you find online. I feel like there is no shame in the game to find patterns, especially if you are new to Marvelous and don't really understand pattern making. And it's not natural, I don't think, to just understand how patterns look like naturally. So definitely look it up. So what I'm going to do is in my 2D pattern window, I'm going to right click and do add background image. And from here, we're going to have a little menu here with a little tiny folder here. I'm going to click on that and then just put my stuff off screen just in case. I don't know, man. But I'm going to find where I have 2D flats. I thought I downloaded them, but I guess I didn't. So let me save out some images. Alright. So I'm going to select the vest pattern. I'm just going to say okay. The bad thing about this guy is once you have it, you kind of have to right click and say you don't like the size of it. Then you can scale it down kind of in this way. But besides that, it's pretty limited into like where you can kind of place this guy. He's pretty stuck on, but it's still useful when making patterns. So let's just start. So this is for the vest part of her, of Barbie. So let's trace over the pattern. And what's great is, you know, this tool tool, meaning Marvelous Designer, was intended for fashion designers to kind of expedite their entire pipeline. But I guess it was just a little bit hard to pick up for the fashion industry. I feel like fashion, they aren't what I would deem the fastest when it comes to technology and kind of updating their processes. So I understand why it was intended for fashion designers, but it ended up being used by CG artists because they're like, wow, this is actually really great. Um, so I'm just gonna double click and let me just make sure that my pattern, my surface is translucent so I can see what I'm exactly tracing over. I know some of you were like, oh, like some of these patterns are just really hard to read and I don't really understand. Me either, but I know what the general shape of the pattern should be. So I know which pattern to use on the map. And if you guys are really mystified as to which pattern to use, because sometimes they overlap it, just pick one and start from there. And then try the other one and just pick, mix and match until you kind of find the right pattern. I think would be my best guess into how to navigate pattern making or like how to use these pattern 2D flats. Is just go for it. Start tracing one and finish, see what it will look like getting sewn onto whichever piece. You know, the worst thing that could happen is, hey, that looks kind of weird. Probably not sewn on to the right pattern, right? And then you just kind of keep on sewing it to parts until it starts making sense. There is some visual tells, like this I know is a shirt pattern as opposed to pants patterns. Just by, you know, I feel like some of it maybe is a little more common sense because this clearly looks like a front of a vest. So it's a little easier for me to say that. But there's usually little tells, like this is probably the armhole. And then sometimes with jackets and stuff, they'll have that little divot where the waist is. So there's that. I'm just going back into my pattern to just make sure that I'm tracing right on the line or at least as close as possible. And usually with patterns like this that I find online, so once you're done, you can go to your background image and do reset, and that'll just get rid of your background image if you're done with that, which at the moment I am. And so if you're confused and you're really, really new to pattern making, really new to Marvelous Designer, usually the back, you can tell which one is the back by the neck hole. Usually the neck hole will be higher up. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do Control D on this back pattern because we do need the other half of it. It is just currently one pattern, and same with this guy, Control D. And that will give me a symmetrical pattern with a linked relationship. So you see how the outline is blue. So that means they are connected. You see how the other pattern is moving along, even though I'm just adjusting one. So that is an indicator that you have a pattern right now. The one that you're patterning, the one that you have selected is going to affect another pattern. So that is a really useful thing for me and just in general for people to use because you will only have to worry about one half of the pattern instead of constantly trying to make it symmetrical. And I just did in the 3D menu, I put on my show arrangement points, and these are blue dots that appear on the body. And as you see with my pattern, I select one pattern and I try to hover it over the area that I want it to be sewn around. So I did that for the back, and let's select the front, and let's do it for the back. And I think I want to go a little bit higher. Once you have them generally placed in their areas, just turn off your arrangement points since that is done. We are now going to sew our front and back together. So I'm just selecting them in my 3D viewport so I can see which patterns to sew to. So I'm just going to do a segment sew here. And then another segment sew on the shoulders. And what's so great about symmetrical patterns is, as you see, the other side comes along for the ride. So let's sew that together. Now let's sew these darts closed. And one here. And now we have our general vest. And overall, I would say this guy is okay, just a little large. So let us close our vest so that we can just have one solid piece to work with instead of a lot of things to toggle on and off. The first thing I'll do is I'm gonna grab these guys and arrange them in a way where they are both kind of stacked, but like on top of each other, one on top of the other. And the reason for that is so that when I grab them all and do uniform, when I double click on the middle of this, what is this called, selection box, it turns orange, and that will allow me to uniformly scale down or up or sideways or overall. I'm just going to dial this guy down until I get something a little... Oh, did I not sew my back together? Haha! Let's sew that guy together. Short. Okay. And I'm just gonna make it a little smaller. Just a touch. Because as you see in the Barbie one, it's very slim fit. Very snug on her. And cropped. I realized in the last tutorial, a lot of the times I was doing my work here and my camera was covering it, so very sorry about that. I'm still getting used to this life of mine. All right. Oh, and then a lot of people, when we first start off in Marvelous Designer, they stay really loyal to the silhouette. And what that ends up doing is it ends up making their patterns very tight, very small. And I think this shadow is very misleading because it's not factoring in volume. So we're not doing like paper dolls, right? We have bodies with curves and volume on it, right? So it doesn't factor in that this fabric needs to crawl sideways to the side of her torso. So just something to note, this will just be more used as like a general scale of how big or small your pattern should be, in the sense of like it should be around this size rather than this size, right? That's pretty much like how useful this silhouette is, or how I treat it at least. So once we have that, let us shorten this, because again, it is a crop top. And, you know, before we get into the details of everything, let's just, you know, get it to the general size. I think a lot of people are like, oh, let me get, like, you know, it's not this, it's like a little bit more this shape. Before that, let's just get it to the general vicinity it needs to go, right? Which is a little bit higher up to that crop top shape. All right. So I see that it's really hitting right above her belly button. So I'm going to use that visual cue as my little note. And at this point, I'm actually going to move this guy straight and delete this segment point, because our vest doesn't have that little tapering out. It does lay really flat and like a diamond. Okay, and so I'm just going to bring this guy down for now. Cool. I'm just checking out the pattern as is, and I'm also going to check out the back side and see how that's finished. So that is sewn all the way down. So in that case, I'm going to actually delete, or I'm going to convert this guy to a curve point, and I'm just going to clean up this guy a little bit, because I don't think we need such a curve to get the tightness that we need for her. And this one I'm also going to make a little bit wider because I see a lot of excess here. And I'm going to simplify this dart as well to something a little simpler. The reason why I start simplifying things is because I don't see a huge difference in overcomplicating the shape. So like when I delete that, I don't see a huge difference in my fit, right? So it's better when you're tracing, definitely make it as accurate as possible and then start simplifying that pattern shape to your liking as you go. It should just be kind of a base, a starting point for you. And if it does apply, then like keep those curve points. But for me, I didn't really see the need to overcomplicate my pattern. And actually with her pattern in the back, I see the seam go all the way up like this. Meaning I think around here is a cut. I think these were multiple pieces of patterns that were sewn on together. So I'm just gonna curve this guy into the pattern, more or less. I'm gonna do a cut and sew. Okay, and it'll create this shape for me. I'm just gonna line this guy up a little bit neater, again, just to simplify the shape of it, and this guy as well. I'm just going to simplify this and convert to curve. That way I can stay loyal to the pattern, but also kind of have it be manageable. Okay, and I see a little bit of, you see how this pattern kind of pokes out like that? So it's due to this guy, and so let's get rid of that intensity, see if that helps. And in my opinion, I don't think it really did, so I think it might be this guy that's making it poke out. Okay, so if that's undesirable, which I think it is, just because again our vest is going to be a little bit more crop top, a little more trendy. She is Barbie, and now you can see it doesn't do that weird flicking out. It stays pretty flush. Nice, nice. And I'm just going to neaten this up. Pretty much I'm going to pretend that what happened, because in reality, pretty sure garments are made where they cut this huge diagonal piece first, and then they add these little darts later. And again, I'm just gonna grab this guy and see if simplifying it will help the shape. I think it does. So I'm just gonna press the control key so that I could go get along the angle, like so, and just make it really tight on her. Okay, and I'm gonna push this guy back a little because I do see a little bit of excess here. And now we get kind of like a nice flesh, flesh to her body look. Okay. And I see a little bit of excess here. So what I can do is push that back a little, see if that helps. Nope. And I'm just gonna lower this a touch, see if that helps. I don't think it really did. So that's okay. We'll still troubleshoot. I also want to pay attention now to the armhole. This is a great reference to see just how much of a gap between that armpit is to the arm side here. So I think mine is just a tad large. So I'm going to grab these guys and just push them a little bit closer to my front pattern, just so that I know that we're kind of scaling this as uniformly as possible. Okay, and then now let's try to hit those right angles. It's always nice to hit a right angle just so that this guy, when sewn, can seamlessly get sewn into this guy. What we risk if we don't hit right angles is something like a situation like this, where the shape is just kind of abruptly changing, or something like this where it kind of makes this weird peak. What we really want is something more seamless, like to, again, Marvelous is pretty forgiving, so it will try to help you out and will try to understand to a degree what you're trying to do and try to get you that shape. But it's always just good practice to see if you're hitting those right angles. Now what I'm going to do is I feel like there's a lot of space here. And so I'm just going to try to push this guy out more so that it's a little bit more flesh to that armpit. A lot of students of mine, they tend to make this armhole very tiny, like right up to there. And I always discourage that because, you know, we aren't just kind of, we're not just doing this the whole time. We're very mobile, right? We're mobile people, some more than others, but we want that ability. And the only way we can have that ability is if we have space, right? If we have, I mean, like, look at how large this armhole is, right? So I definitely, you know, encourage a lot of room up there for the breathing of your armpit. Okay, and I think that is a little bit better of a shape. And let's address the back as well. I think the back is actually pretty good shape-wise. It looks like it's hugging very like evenly or throughout. So I think I'll just leave that actually. Okay. So now the next order of action for me is to grab, I'm gonna just shimmy these guys over. I'm gonna break symmetry. You know what? Before I do that, that's really the last thing I want to do. Because basically I want to have the button, but I'll just wait. Because it's better to try to keep your symmetry as long as possible. Kind of the same thing as ZBrush when you're sculpting a face. You want to keep symmetry for as long as you can. So before I do that, I do want to create some internal lines for the second layer. And so I see this guy kind of going all the way up to here. And there's another photo that I found of the back, and you can see that there's this little pad in the back that continues. Poor thing. I mean, she was just trying to film a movie. And then all of this happened. Okay. I'm just going to make a general shape first so that I can kind of build from there. And overall, I think it needs to be lower. And this guy needs to be lower as well. Too low, too low, too low, too low. Too low. Something like that. And then I'm just gonna grab the pattern and do extend trim to pattern outline. That's just to make sure that it's hitting the edges. And I'm gonna use my V key to just make a little tiny curve because I do see a little tiny curve. Maybe a little bit more. Something like that. Cool. Offset internal line. Don't do extend. And I'm gonna do 1 centimeter. Yeah. And then let me see if oh man, these are not great options. Oh, cancel. Let me try to just do these guys first. Set internal line, do 1, don't extend. Okay, that's not really what I wanted, but okay. I'm gonna grab this guy and just kind of shimmy him up. Delete this curve point because it was making weird results. And then I'm just going to connect these guys to each other. Okay. And then from this guy, let me also extend trim and add point to pattern outline. That way I can just section off this guy. Oh, actually I think it's just like this and like this. Cool. And let's do offset internal line. Okay. Let's see if this works. I'm gonna grab these 2 points and do merge to average. Oh, no. Let's do merge point. Yeah, whatever. And then let's bring this guy to pattern. I thought it would do this genius thing, but it didn't. That's okay. Sometimes you don't get what you want, but that doesn't mean you won't eventually get what you want. Okay. All right. Now that I have that, let's sim it just so it doesn't do that weird penetration thing. I'm gonna step this down to a lower particle distance just so that I can see what that inseam is starting to look like. If that's what it's gonna look like, then I'd rather just get rid of this segment point and then bring this guy out so that it's offset a little bit more parallel to the silhouette. Oops. And I'm gonna grab these 2 points and do merge to point. Now we have 1 point to control. Just gonna offset that guy over there and do the same thing here, merge point, and lift this guy up. Just to make sure that it kind of looks a little bit more evenly offset. Cool. Now that we have that, I'm gonna grab my patterns that I want to clone over. So I'm gonna do a layer clone over. Just the patterns that have the inseam. What I'm gonna do now is I'm going to remove the linked editing between these 2 patterns. So remove linked editing. I'm gonna bring back the symmetrical pattern by applying symmetrical pattern with sewing back to these relations, because I do want to just keep on controlling just one, and then it'll just help me get my symmetry. And I'm gonna cut this guy, and I'm gonna cut this guy. Delete, delete, delete. Let's see what is getting sewn on. So this guy lost his relationship, which is understandable because it just got chopped. But we could just easily bring them back. And what that does is it allows us to have a layer on top. And what I can do is slightly offset this guy. So I'm going to make him a little bit larger, just so that you can't really see it because of the lower particle distance. But when I lower the particle distance, the offset will kind of give that breakup that we see of like kind of like this puffy look. It's hard to tell with this fabric just because it's a thick fabric, but it kind of gives you that poof and that dimension rather than like 2 flat pieces of paper on top of each other. So that will help. Okay, now we have that. Actually, this is a toughie, but I actually think this pattern is lower. Now that I see it on here, I feel like it actually hits much lower than where I have it right now. Okay, so I'm gonna make that adjustment. I'm gonna make the call. Just bite the bullet and let's just get it done. And then I'm gonna grab this pattern since it's pretty much just this cutout. What I'm just gonna do is I'm gonna just offset it and make sure that it is pretty close to that other shape that we're sewing it onto. And I just need it to be generally the same shape, but not necessarily verbatim like the identical cut out because we did offset it just now. Long story short. Okay, and then if you ever have like a stubborn piece of fabric here, you could always do superimpose over, and that'll just snap it right on top of the normals. You can't really tell because the particle distance is really low, but I do like working at a higher particle distance. So 20 is usually where I kind of keep my pattern until I'm ready to like sim details. But really, this is like where I like to work. It's like the same thing as working at a low poly count in ZBrush and then kind of, you know, subdividing to get more details. Same with Marvelous Designer. You kind of just work at a higher particle distance and then lower it slowly but surely. Okay, so now that we have that, we have, oh, I think her dart actually reaches all the way past here. Technically, I bet it's a different pattern entirely, like a separate cutout pattern. But, you know, we're here for a good time, not a long time. And so I think by just bringing that dart all the way up to here, it'll just kind of mimic that look without overcomplicating our pattern. Oh, and you see this little point that it's doing? So that is due to the fact that we have no longer hit that right angle. So now it's a little bit curvier. Again, hard to see because low particle distance, I mean high particle distance, but all of this matters in the grand scheme of things. Okay, let's check out our strain, see how tight everything is. This guy, it is meant to be very fitted on her, but red is usually for like, is really reserved for bodycon. I feel like it's only acceptable when it's like supposed to be very skin tight, like latex or something. So most of the time when I see red, I do find it concerning and I do want to fix it. So it's around her chest that is very tight. So let's address that. How do we address that? Well, I think her chest area is greatly affected by this section and this section. So what we can do to help her out is just make this guy wider. So let's make this guy wider. And let's hit that right angle. And check out our strain. It is better, but it's still very tight. She's like, I can barely breathe. So let's help her breathe again. And so let's make our dart a little bit smaller, just so that, oh man, maybe not, because we do need that tightness on the bottom. It's okay. They are not our friend. Let's push this out more, and let's push this guy further in. And I'm just moving this guy, I'm just shuffling him around until it kind of looks like it's evenly offset. Okay. And let's check it out. Okay, definitely better. And again, since we offset both sides, it is just going to affect that bottom area, but we can just widen that dart to kind of shorten that piece of fabric. But we do need to still address this section, so let's keep on going. And again, we're just going to make it wider. And let's delete some of these curve points. Try to simplify it as much as possible. You know, a lot of people, I feel like it's like they just get in there and then they just start adding curves and really complicating their patterns. But a lot can be achieved in very simple patterns. And I highly recommend really challenging yourself in how to get a look with very simple patterns. Luckily, we aren't trying to actually make this guy in real life. We're just trying to get this guy to look good in 3D. So use that to your advantage. There is a lot of advantage in understanding real pattern making for Marvelous Designer, but it's not an end all be all for Marvelous Designer. It is very user friendly. So try your best to make it like real world patterns, but you know, sometimes in the end it's kind of like, well, it doesn't really work anymore. I have to do this change, then you know, that is your call. Maybe I'm overcomplicating that, but whatever. You guys know what I mean. Just try to use good practice, but sometimes I get it, like, you know, we're not trying to make this actually work in real life. Okay. And I'm actually going to make this guy just a little bit less offset. So just a little bit closer to the pattern below it. Just because we're not making it like a really wrinkly piece on top, we're just trying to make it look like it has some volume on it. Okay. And same with this guy, I'm just going to offset him just enough where, you know, we get a little bit more energy in this. Sometimes with Marvelous, when you change planes in your sewing, sometimes it really doesn't like that. It like fights and it doesn't really understand what you're trying to do. So sometimes breaking up these sewing planes to be just one line instead of like a corner, if you will, like a change of plane. Sometimes doing that kind of helps calm it down. I'm just gonna grab these guys because I noticed that they're not hitting the pattern outline. So I'm just gonna grab the segment points and do extend to pattern. And just because of that, yeah, I want to just make sure that these guys are also extending to pattern. Same with these guys. It's really important to hit the pattern edges just so that the sewing relationships go all the way to the seam. Okay. I'm not really sure why this guy is particularly buggy, but I'm just gonna chalk it up to the fact that we are in a high particle distance. So I'm gonna make the dart a little bit wider so that it can snatch her. Yes. So cute. It's getting cute already, guys. Very excited. I'm just lifting this up so that this shape, do you see how it's not going into like a crispy diagonal? So I'm going to see what is good. Why is it doing that? Basically, I'm trying to get these two line lengths to be a little bit closer so that they are sewn right at, like, pretty much what it was doing was, since this back line right here is a little shorter, it was kind of like cinching it upwards, kind of making that weird parallel little divot thing that you were seeing where it like kind of flattens. And again, I'm just gonna, whoa, this guy really hates the vibes here. Let's check it out. All right, so maybe we just need to remove this guy and just sew him piece by piece. So let's just sew this guy one by one, like so. Like so. Maybe that'll help. Oof. You good? It kind of helps, so let's just keep that. Again, I'm just gonna lengthen this guy so that we keep that nice diagonal line. And again, I'm just gonna try to make this guy as cinched on her as possible. Let's check out strain. I think this much I'm gonna let it go because I do want it to be pretty snug on her. All right, now let's address the back pattern. As you see, this guy is getting sewn, this edge is going to get sewn onto this edge. Currently 16.61 is getting sewn onto 18.79. So the good rule of thumb for Marvelous Designer is that the difference between the lengths should be a little less than 1. If it's a little over one, okay, fine, but more than one, like generously over 1 centimeter of a difference between line lengths, you will see some weird stitching and weird behavior. So definitely try to get these guys, if not exact, pretty close to each other. Same with this guy. We're just going to try to hit the 25.39. Okay. And that way we just have like a little bit more accurate cinching. And honestly, let me see what this back is doing, because I want to see if it rolls down or if it crops upwards. And it actually does roll down. So this shape feels good, but I actually think this guy needs to be lower, like so. And I'm actually going to get rid of this curve point just to simplify. And I need this guy to point, but less severely. Okay, and then I need this guy to not have such a like this little like dimple here that's being made. I don't really like that shape, so I'm going to see what I can do about it. Sometimes when I'm confused, especially when I trace over a pattern, I'm like, wait, what are these adjustments? What I do is I select a pattern that I want to rotate and do rotate parallel to, and I'm going to select the line I want it to be parallel to, and then I'm going to select the line to move. And what that does for me is it allows me to just kind of nestle it in here and kind of get a better understanding of what the heck is going on. Okay, so now that I know this, I'm going to actually push this pattern a little bit closer to the shape it's getting sewn onto. And now I understand why it's doing kind of like a weird dimple thing. So I want it to be more like this. Nice. So that's way smoother of a transition. Do you see that now? Cool. So just a little neat trick that I use from time to time. It's funny because I use it very heavily at times, and then for a while I don't use it at all, and then I forget how to use that tool. But you guys are in luck. I just freshly had to relearn it again. That and the pleat tool, I'm always like, how do I use this? All the time. But yeah, so just now, since I was parallel to this pattern, I saw that my pattern was divoted a little, and it was kind of giving this weird shape. In the grand scheme of things, I don't think that would affect my sim too much, but it's just good practice to have very pristine, clean sound practice. Yeah, in this case, I don't think it mattered, but in later cases, you might see that. And so it's something that it's good practice to just keep on checking your patterns in that way. All right, so now that we have this guy, we're going to turn off the strain because it does chug our system. It does look very loose up here, so let us try to see what this offset is doing. Maybe I was too ambitious with it. Maybe so, maybe so. Maybe I'll just nuzzle it so that it's just a little bit bigger. Maybe that's all she really needed. Like so. Because I don't want too much wrinkling. Just enough to be like, there's a piece of fabric on here on top. Isn't that cool? All right. Now that we have that, I'm going to check out the pockets. Yeah, luckily these pockets are just really cute, like almost like stick-on pockets. So what I'm going to do is in my 3D window, this is usually for when I have multiple patterns that I want to kind of trace an internal line on. What I do is I go to my edit line tool and I go to line 3D pattern, and this dot appears, and now I have the ability to create a pattern across patterns that aren't necessarily one piece. And say you mess up, you're like, oh no, I put that curve here, what do I do? Then press the delete key and that'll put you, put that thing away. Okay. And one more. Oops. Okay. Now that's a super weird shape. So I'm gonna go into my edit line and that will allow me to just grab my curve and just shape it in a way that I like. This is great to draw in the 3D because a lot of people, I understand, don't understand how these patterns are kind of getting sewn on and why they need to be the certain shapes that they need to be. But this is a really great tool to just draw around your model and start kind of seeing why certain patterns look the way they do. Okay, I'm just seeing the placement of my pockets, seeing if that is cute or not. I'm trying to see if it's parallel, but really it's doing its own thing, guys. These pockets are just kind of like slapped on and just ready for action. All right, so now that I have that, you see that it created this gray line in your 2D viewport. So with that, I'm going to carefully put an internal line on these patterns, on this line, sorry. Something I want to work on more is my terminology. My vocabulary for fashion is very limited. So it is something that bothers me and I will try to work on this year. And that way I can give you guys a little bit more of a thorough education, if you will. And so at this point, I'm going to make sure that I'm on my edit line pattern tool and I'm going to select my pattern and delete it after I trace it, just because I no longer really need it. And on Sims, it kind of chugs and does something weird. So, you know, Marvelous is already very sensitive. So let's minimize the amount of torture we give it. So I'm just going to make sure that these guys are hitting the, are they not? Okay. Are just hitting the pattern outline. Very important to make sure that these guys aren't just dangling in space somewhere. That also, like, not all the time, because obviously you're not always like sewing your internal lines, but sometimes when you're sewing things together, it does like kind of give it a weird offset look. So at this point, I'm going to grab every point that I have and I'm going to ask it to add a point to pattern outline. That way we can use underneath our edit pattern tool, our trace tool. And the hotkey for that is I. Do I remember that all the time? No. So I'm gonna grab all of my pattern, if you will, and right click and do trace as pattern. And this guy will pop up. And same thing on the other side where I just grab all of my internal lines and the pattern line that is affected. That's why it was important to put down those segment points so that you can just grab this and do trace as pattern. Okay, now we have our beautiful little pocket and I'm gonna grab these 2 points and do merge so that we have one bucket. Shablam! And this is what I'm going to use to sew onto our pattern. And it's great because it's just these 2 patterns merged, so they come with their segment points. So this relationship is exactly this half, and this relationship is exactly that half. I say half loosely because clearly they're a little bit offset. And so we have this pattern all the way over here, and instead of trying to sim it and just hoping that it'll land, what I do is I right click it and do superimpose over, and it'll just snap right on top. Boom. Now we have a pocket. Yay, pocket. Nice. So I'm going to do Control D so that I get the other pocket for free. Like so. Sim that guy. Boom, 2 pockets. I'm on a roll, baby. You can't stop me. And then these pockets, they have like a little inseam here. So I'm going to, I guess I should have done that before, but it's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to offset internal line from this guy. And maybe I'll do something like 0.5. Press OK. And same here, I'm going to do offset internal line, reverse direction. And say OK. Why is it off? I don't understand. I'm gonna make sure that this guy is snapped to the internal line. And same thing here, I'm going to do offset internal line by 0.5. Oh, reverse direction. Nice. Now we can sew these inseams here into this guy, and to this guy. Now, this is a good example of weirdness. You see how these internal lines are past the pattern? So pretty much you're asking this pattern to be sewn into air, into nothingness, right? And that will cause kind of weird bugginess. It won't be like a huge deal, but it's something that is a little odd to have. So definitely take time and make sure that you go in there and you extend to pattern outline so it just snaps to the pattern and you know that it's right on it. Like so. Now we have little pockets. Yay! I love pockets. What is she gonna put in there? Who cares? Just love and affection. Okay, another thing that I noticed is these little stars. So cute. So let's add the stars. Why not? You know, whatever. Stars have 5 points, yes. And I'm just going to wing it. I have a lot of experience as a child building stars. And I'm just gonna make half of it, like so. Yes, beautiful, beautiful, just as planned. And I'm just gonna shimmy this guy a little so it doesn't look so strange. Like so. Let's make it halfway. Something like that. Something like that. Ooh. Okay. Ooh. I don't know. This might look weird. Okay. Let's do unfold with symmetrical pattern. Okay. Okay, star. Now I could just move it around. I was about to say like a normal person. That's not true. Alright. It's good. Cool. Now I have this. And I think he's a little huge. So I'm going to scale him down. I'm just going to try to eyeball it so that it's nice and small. It's just a cute little accent. And honestly, I feel like these are just hot glued on. I thought Barbie had a budget, but it's okay. Let's do offset internal line by 50. Oh, maybe it's too small for. Ooh. Okay. Okay. And I'm gonna grab these guys and I'm gonna grab these points. Or not. I'm just gonna grab this guy and make them meet in the middle. And this guy, I'm just gonna make him meet that point in the middle. Kill. Now that I have that. How should I do this? Because it does look like these guys are just kind of slapped on. Maybe these guys are sewn on to it? I'm trying to think of a smarter way to do this. But okay, I guess there is no way. When in doubt, just sew it on for now, just to simplify my life. I'm just gonna sew it on. And I think it was like, I think it was like 0.5, if I saw correctly. And I'm just gonna shimmy it over to a place, and I'm gonna sew that internal line that I just made all the way over there. Superimpose over. Oh, I was making it for this guy all the way over here. Now I'm just gonna flip my normal because sometimes the normal is flipped. Oh. Squeeze me. Okay. After I make my star, I'm going to remove linked editing. I think that's what's making it kind of buggy. And I'm gonna sew this guy into that. And that should make that work properly. I'm not really sure why the symmetrical pattern here would double it on the other side. But anyway, Control D so that we can get it on the other side. I'm trying to make it straight. Okay. So we have one on the other side. What? Wait, what? Control D. Okay. Okay, do not do Control D. I'm gonna copy and paste onto the other side. Okay, and I'll just manually sew it. I couldn't tell you why. Wait, what? There's this guy. Oh, oops, oopsies, whoopsie toopsies. All right, superimpose over. They were flipped. I think that's why they were like fighting each other so much. Cool. And then let's make another one. So that guy, copy, paste to the other side. And again, I'm just gonna finesse him in a way where I know it's just gonna hit that corner. Like so, such as copy and paste. I'm just gonna bring it into there and sew this guy. Okay, so where is this guy in the grand scheme of things? Where are you? Where are you? Are you in there? I see you. I see it. Oh, we're in the depths of her soul. And it's empty. Okay, grab this pattern, superimpose over. Boom. Copy, paste, so Control C. Control C, Control V. Oh man, I did the same thing. It's gonna be in her body. Or not, I lied. And superimpose over so it snaps to the top. And bam, we got some stars. How cute. Let's flip the normal on this guy. So right click, flip normal, bing bang boom. So beautiful. I love them. Okay, and the last thing I want to do is, you see how it's kind of like wanting to push out like that? I'm gonna see if I can strengthen them and maybe that'll be heavy enough for them to just be flatter. I think that works. This guy's really fighting, so let me check out what is happening. Maybe I need to offset it a little bit, like so. Yeah, cute. Wait, I want to do more like this, like they're out. Yes, like that. It's so beautiful. Okay, cool. Yay, the stars. Okay, I don't know. Are you guys excited? Like, I'm so excited. This is so beautiful. Hi again. I'm coming on to just let you know that this will be the end of this tutorial of blocking in the vest. I hope you guys found it informative. It did have a lot of challenges, but I think with some patience and some slow pace adjustments, you guys can totally nail it. So have fun, and I hope that you guys can also do the stars as well, because I really had a lot of fun with those. And see you next time. Bye.